Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Mindset series. My name's Rochelle and today we are talking about why failure stops more dreams than a lack of talent ever will. Let me explain. People aren't failing because they tried and something went wrong. They're failing because they never start. Today I'm going to be showing you practical ways to stop fear of failure running your life. What is failure? I think for a lot of us failure is making a mistake, being embarrassed, having to start again, maybe not doing something perfectly the first time. We reframe that and think about it in a different way. In reality, failure can be feedback, it can be data, and it can give us direction. And with those things, we can use failure as a tool to build our success. To kind of think about it in the way that failure is only permanent if you give up. If you fail and get up every single time, you haven't failed. I think in fact, the word failure and what it means to us as individuals holds so much weight. And we have to remember that making a mistake or being embarrassed or getting something wrong or not doing something perfectly is not failing. And the moment we can kind of ground ourselves and remind ourselves that, no, actually, if I've failed and I've learned something, that's the most valuable thing. So I think when we think about failure, a really interesting thing we can do, especially if we have this fear of failure and we know it's stopping us in taking an action or doing a task, we can think to ourselves, what is the actual worst case scenario here? So if the action we're taking is public speaking, maybe we have to do a speech in front of 50 people, and we think to ourselves, what's the worst case scenario that can happen here? Are we going to die? No. Will we sound maybe a little shaky in our voice? Maybe we will be visibly shaky in our hands. Maybe we'll be a little sweaty. Will this ruin our career? No. Will this hurt a loved one? No. So when we think about the actual stakes of the failure we have perceived for an action, a lot of the times our minds make it sound a lot scarier and a lot more drastic than the actual risk that we're facing. So when we talk about public speaking, if it's our first time, our fear of failure is telling us all these horrible things like we will be socially crippled, we will probably die, all these horrible things. But when we really think about it, and if we can kind of detach ourselves from that part of our brain telling us that all these horrible things are going to happen, and acknowledge that yes, this is going to be tough, yes, I'm not good at public speaking yet, my voice is going to sound shaky, I'm going to be sweaty, we can focus on those and know that those things are okay, and that in fact everyone in that crowd probably expects those things from you or anyone public speaking. Like, in fact I know no one is born an amazing public speaker. This is a learned skill, and if you're standing in front of a room full of people and that is your task that's causing your fear of failure, you have to remember that once you complete that task, and this actually links into another video I have on confidence, so please like and subscribe to my channel and check that out. Once you complete that task, once you do some public speaking, you will feel more confident, and maybe you won't be the most confident the second time or the third time or the fourth time or the fifth time, but I guarantee you by the 10th time you're going to be feeling pretty good about yourself. You're going to know what you're doing, you're going to know what to expect, you're going to know, yeah, I get sweaty, yeah, at the start my throat's really dry and I have no saliva in my mouth, so my voice is a bit rough. But after that, you get into it, you know, you're moving around the stage, you're holding the room in the palm of your hand, everyone's listening to you, all eyes are on you, and you're doing amazing. And moving past that fear of failure and building that confidence is one of the most valuable things. And in order to let that go, you have to realize that the risk at hand is not actually the risk that our brain is telling us. We are not going to die. There is not some drastic negative result that's going to come from you being embarrassed or you failing. There is no failing, right? Like, you're learning, you're growing, you're developing a skill, and the moment you realize that and tell yourself that, remind yourself of that, I think you will excel in leaps and bounds in the direction that you want to go. So write a list of 10 things that you think you have failed at, or 10 times you think you failed. And next to each of those things, write down something that you've learned from that experience. And I guarantee you learned more than one thing from each of those experiences. And after reading those, you will realize that that failure isn't failure. Those mistakes have led you to skills, to things that you have learned that have built you into the person you are, and you cannot possibly get better or improve without going through those things. When you think about your current strengths and you reflect, you'll probably realize that those things have come through what you would deem as a failure. And even if we look at the example of maybe like an amazing sports star, their skill in that sport was not perfect the day they were born. As a child, an adolescent and a young adult, those people made mistake after mistake after mistake in order to learn how to execute those shots perfectly, in order to kick a goal, in order to be a better defense. I don't know a lot about sports, but I do know that they weren't born perfect and that they did go through these skill building activities that had failures in order for them to become this amazing version of themselves now. And in fact, the quicker you fail, the further you move, and the further you move, the quicker. So I always hear this interesting thing, and I think this really applies here, is if you were told that you were 10 or 100 failures away from achieving what you wanted, how fast would you fail? You would be trying again and again and again and again with no fear of failure, knowing that after those 100 or 10 failures, you would get the result you wanted. And that's a perfect example of you have to fail and you have to move through these hurdles in order to gain the skills and the experience to be good at something that you want to be good at. Another way we can kind of detach ourselves from this is to stop thinking, I failed, and instead think, this attempt didn't work, or what could I do differently? Or, okay, it didn't work, so what's the new thing we can try? What can we do this time that might be that little bit different that will get us the result we want? And in the same breath, adopting like an experiment mindset. So like you're kind of a scientist, you're using this and you're using the failures as data. So you know that maybe you've tried a certain marketing tactic and it hasn't worked. So what's that one little piece of data you can manipulate in order to change that, to lead you to a different result? And if you make a mistake again, that's fantastic, because you know that the second thing you change doesn't work either. So what's the third thing you could change that may give you the result you want? And maybe that leads you to your success, and all those failures you just made produce you that perfect result you were after. Really, when we're doing that, we're just testing and adjusting. And that's the same with producing content, marketing, starting a new gym program. Our lives are kind of trial and error. We have to see something that fits for us, and once we find that perfect fit, we're all set. But before that, we do have to go through the trials of finding out what is going to work the best for us. So when we're looking practically at this, pick one thing that you're avoiding and break this into small tasks. In fact, you can even adopt the mindset of doing it badly on purpose, just jumping in and giving it a shot, knowing that this isn't going to be the perfect result, but the quicker you fail, the more skills you gain faster, and then the quicker you'll see your success. So for example, even with me like posting my YouTube videos, like if you go back and watch my first couple of videos, I think my confidence just wasn't there. And in no way am I saying that I'm perfect now, but I am saying that this is easier for me now, to sit down, to set my room up, you know, to chuck the camera on and to talk about things, to research topics, to generate video ideas. It's a lot easier now, and it's easier now because I made all those mistakes in the start. I know what to expect, I know what I have to do, I know how to edit basic videos, and through that, my fear of failure has almost dissipated. Like, I am not scared to keep on trying because I know and I can see when I look back on my past videos that every video I make, I'm getting a little bit better. Maybe it's a little bit better at generating a title idea, or using hashtags, or finding the perfect time to post. There's always something that I'm improving on, even if it's the tiniest thing, from failing all the previous times. And that is something that's so valuable to me, and I hope becomes valuable to you if you adopt, you know, that experimental mindset of like, the more times I try, the more times I'll know what the perfect way to do this is. But overall, you don't need to stop being scared. You don't need to stop having a fear of failure. That's okay. What you need to do is stop letting fear run your life. Stop letting fear, or stop obeying the fear. Don't let it stop you from trying new things. Instead, know that once you try those things, you are going to learn from them, and you are going to become more skillful, more practical in the actions you're taking. You're going to know what to expect. You're going to know where you may be going wrong. And that's one of the most valuable things that you can honestly have. So once you kind of move past the idea of being embarrassed or thinking you've made a mistake or having to start again, you'll realize that in fact all those things are amazing things because they help you move to the person, to the success, to the actions, to the business, to whatever it is that you're trying to do, and they're going to make you so much better at all those things. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this video kind of helped you realize that you don't need to be afraid of failing, and that failing in fact is going to push you close to your success, and the more times you fail, the better you are going to be in the long run. So I'll see you next time in the next episode of the Mindset series. Don't forget to like and subscribe.